This is episode 21 of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and in this episode, TJ and I discuss the Second Doctor's companions. Welcome to another episode of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and I'm finally back with TJ because life got busy, and
Life
now we're
gets
back.
busy. That's what it does. Life gets busy. I've done a lot in the last few months, and it's finally able to record again.
The most concise of which is your oldest graduating and then going to Florida with her, I think is the...
Yes, that is one of the. My oldest did a lot this year for her senior year of high school, and then, which part of that did steal a lot of my time because she was in the color guard, and then I did the parent color guard show, so that took a lot of my time as well for the month of March, especially. Not too much, but enough.
Yeah.
Um,
But now we're back.
and then now we're back. But yeah, welcome back, me.
Well, with your trip to Florida, we might as well go into your recommendation.
So great segue.
I thought it
So
was.
my eldest and I, we got to go to um we did 5 days at Disney, and but before that we spent 3 days at Universal Studios Orlando, which is
Your
what my
poor feet.
recommendation. My feet sucked at the end. I was so mad. My feet hurt. Every day we would go out of the hotel room, the last 2 days especially, and my feet would just hurt.
Yep.
And then like the few days before that, my feet hurt a decent amount after a little bit. So I got 20,000 steps a day for 5 of the days that we were there. It rained one of the days that we were in Orlando, so didn't quite get to do as much as we wanted to. But thank goodness for ponchos.
Mm-hmm.
But the real thing I was going to do as my recommendation this week is Universal Studios Orlando, and specifically the Harry Potter um, lands. I don't know what they call them. I guess Harry Potter World. In Orlando, there are two. There is a Hogsmeade with Hogwarts area, and then there's a King's Cross and Diagon Alley section. And so at King's Cross and Diagon Alley, you get to ride a Gringotts Bank Vault ride, which is really fun. But then you get to take the Hogwarts Express and go to the other side of. So yeah, on the second side, with the Hogsmeade and Hogwarts side, the Hogwarts has a ride where you are riding a broom. Hermione makes you fly with some powder. It's a constantly moving ride, and so we rode it twice, and both times where my daughter and I rode it, it stopped because if somebody's slow is getting on or getting off, they have to kind of stop the ride for a moment. It usually is only for a minute at the most, but the first time we were facing kind of forward, not very comfortable to be stopped at, and I didn't want to ride it again. But we went back the next day to ride it, and again it stopped while I was on my head, not on my head, but we were up, and I was afraid my phone was going to fly off out of my pocket. And then my daughter decided to go and ride it again. We went and rode the Hippogriff ride, which is a kiddie roller coaster. It lasts like a minute. And then, but then we also, the first day we were there, we rode Hagrid's magical bike journey. I can't remember what it's called. Basically, Hagrid's motorbike, where it starts off as kind of a roller coaster. It slows down for a moment, and then it speeds back up. And then you get stopped going up to the middle of nowhere because the track is broken, and you go backwards, which was fine. And then all of a sudden you start going backwards and you drop about 17 feet, which that is my least favorite part. But I was able to enjoy it. I didn't have any problems on any of the rides, so we enjoyed that. But it was a 2-hour wait. It had the longest wait out of everything at Universal, and it was not worth riding a second time at that point. My daughter didn't like it very much because when we stopped, we were at the front, and we were pretty much stopped lying on our backs, basically, the way that the front of the ride goes. If you've ever been on a roller coaster, you can understand the concept. So one other thing we did is we got to have breakfast at Three Broomsticks, which was really kind of a
Ooh,
neat experience. My daughter kept pointing at a hog's head because that was also connected to the Three Broomsticks in this Harry Potter world. I understand, and we were able to.
I
She
mean,
kept
the
pointing to the
hog's head is separate, but
hog's head is
it's
separate in the Harry Potter series, but in this world, they're basically two restaurants connected.
it's
But
fine.
there was a hog's head that kept moving, and I was always my back was to it when we were eating. So, but it was really cool. It was a really fun experience to be able to go, and I never thought I would like Universal Studios as much as I did. So, 3 days was a little much. I think two was just fine, but it was nice to have a third day so we could take our time and see a little more.
Yeah.
But it was still a lot of fun. So, how about your recommendation this week? Looks like you want to talk about something that I've actually watched recently.
Well, first, I've done 5 days at Disney World before, and they weren't consecutive days, and that was youch enough on the feet. Never mind 8 days of parks in a row.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, it was pretty it made Epcot not as fun. That was the last one we went to.
I
We
mean,
haven't
that's
done it
basically all you do in Epcot
in
is
Epcot.
walk. So,
Yep, and that was the worst one. We should have done that one earlier in the week, which was
yeah,
the initial plan, but we changed plans last minute. So one of the days. Either way, we got through it. We enjoyed it. It was fun.
yeah.
But speaking of Disney, I think that goes your direction
There you
again.
go. There's a segue. So my recommendation, because um recently was 626 day. So yeah, I had to send Joe a couple Stitch memes, and I
I didn't
watched
even think of that. I saw 626 yesterday, and I didn't even think about 626 that way. But that's funny. I like it. Go ahead.
yep. So my recommendation is Lilo and Stitch. I watched it with my daughter, and it's always a heartwarming parenting moment when I can get her to pick one of my movies or my shows instead of one of the kiddie shows that, yeah, some of them are good, like Bluey, but others are, just kind of, I try to tune them out. So if I can ever get
There's
her
the
to,
range there, right? The range from Bluey to Caillou in my mind. I think that's
yeah,
kind of my range,
sounds about right.
my mindset.
Or somewhere in the middle is just the repetition, and I was going to say repetitive redundancy, but that's
A little redundant itself.
exactly. But there's only so many times I can watch Let It Go and the Frozen movies. As you know, I love Stitch. I have a collection of sorts of different Stitch memorabilia, and I pulled out a couple of my Stitch plush yesterday for my girls to play with. And my older daughter has been snuggling with my bigger Stitch plush for the last couple nights now. So I think that's a parenting win.
I think that's a parenting win as well. I totally agree with that. And I think Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride is one of my favorite songs of all time. So
It's
from
not a
Disney.
musical like the princesses
Nope.
are, but the music in the
I
movie
love the music
is,
in it.
I mean, between Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride and the different Elvis songs and stuff,
Yep.
it's
All the
just
Elvis
it's
songs.
just fun. And there's something just about Stitch and Lilo both being misfits and coming together that,
Yeah.
I don't know, resonates with me.
Well, and Lilo and Stitch are awesome because I think they need each other, even though they don't exactly fit together. They find their way to fit together, which is what makes it beautiful.
Yep.
But we're not here to necessarily talk about Lilo and Stitch and Universal Studios or Harry Potter.
We're here to talk about Doctor Who because
Because what else
we
do we talk about?
are, yeah, seriously though. Even on our Christmas episode, we talked about Doctor Who.
Well,
Yeah.
she looks lovely in her wedding dress. No jump. I mean, it is just Doctor Who for you. But no,
But
we're not talking about the 10th Doctor or Donna.
Nope, we're talking about the second Doctor and his companions specifically, because in our little hiatus from our Doctor Who episodes, we're both well into the third Doctor era, and we've got some discussion to do about the second Doctor before we get it all muddled together.
Yeah, speaking of,
So
I'm very close to being completed with the third Doctor,
I-
so
I've got
we will
one
get the next
season left,
episode.
so I'm trying to catch up to
I'm
you.
about I'm about halfway through that last season almost. So, yep.
But
But we're going to talk about the second Doctor's companions, which one of them we're bringing in as an honorable mention, um, even though
so
he is definitely more of a third Doctor companion.
definitely Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart. Um, More concisely known as the Brigadier, was introduced during the second Doctor's tenure, just two stories, and he's an honorable mention today, just because he was the second Doctor's companion during the Five Doctors 20th anniversary story. Um, we'll get talk more about that when we get to the Fifth Doctor, which will be a while. But
What?
um, but yeah, we'll talk about more about the Brigadier, of course, when we get to the third Doctor, because that's where he becomes a main character.
Yep,
So
that's when Brigadier shines.
we'll leave it at that and not ramble on about it because we both know how much we could ramble about anything.
And honestly, the Brigadier, he's only in two stories with the second Doctor, and he's not the Doctor's companion. He's just a recurring character in that aspect, and he's
Yep.
just not there. So we can go on to our um, regular companions, full-time companions with the second Doctor. And for a reminder for everybody, we have a very simple rating system of
Yeah.
yay, nay, and okay. Yay meaning that we would want this companion to have stayed on longer, to come back,
Or just we enjoyed their
or we enjoyed their
appearance.
tenure. Yep. Nay means no, go away, don't come back. Thank you for leaving the TARDIS. Goodbye. And okay means I appreciate your time here, but we're done with you.
Didn't love or hate.
Yep.
Yep. So we're going to start with Polly and Ben, who were with the first Doctor when he regenerated. We discussed them in our first Doctor Companions episode. So we'll kind of
Yep.
recap that, but then focus on our second Doctor experiences with them.
I don't think
For
we need to recap them. I mean, they're
well,
already
I,
with
I
the
mean,
Doctor.
I mean, I was going to recap that when we did our first Doctor episode, we both said yay for Polly. So
Right.
now we're going to
Okay.
discuss Polly and see if she's still a yay.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, she was with the first Doctor from War Machines and stayed with the second Doctor through the Faceless Ones, returning on the same day that she and Ben had entered the TARDIS.
By
So
accident, of course, like they
yeah,
all do.
yeah,
Um, but then it was nice that not very often when they leave the day that they had arrived. I mean, that's
yeah.
kind of a cool one. Polly, however, Polly was Polly wasn't exactly a superhero type personality, but she was definitely a lot more. She maintained that strong-willed aspect that the first Doctor had had as companions. Um, and not being so afraid of every little thing. I don't. It's been a while, unfortunately. Like we said, I mean, since I we can only listen to the Faceless Ones, so
Yeah,
it's been a little while since I've listened to that. But I don't remember Polly screaming quite as much as some of our other companions have.
yeah. Well, and she after Susan and Barbara and Dodo and Vicky and there's a lot of damsels in distress, but Polly,
Yep.
well, I mean, in the Highlanders, I believe she kept up the facade of being a man for a little bit. So like she was able to. Am I remembering correctly?
I want to say you are, and like I agree. I don't. I think somebody else was the damsel in distress in Team TARDIS during their time together. So
But yeah, she was
Um,
able to be that strong presence that, I mean, kind of
mhm,
paved the way for the third Doctor's companions. I would
mhm.
say all three of his main female companions were pretty strong-willed and just strong in general. And Romana and Ace and plenty of our modern companions, like Polly, kind of paved the way for that.
I think Polly does open the door to seeing a much more um, well-rounded female companion, especially someone who is. Oh, and it never felt like, oh, we're just gonna now make the girl be a strong person. It didn't feel like, okay, oh, that's just what we're gonna do. It felt like this character really had um, intent with what she did and choices that made a lot of sense. Um,
I mean, without
I,
jumping back too much into the first Doctor, right from the start, she was like, that was just her personality to
yep.
jump in and like just be a presence. And I mean, that's how she met Ben. That's how she ended up in the TARDIS. And just, it went on from there.
And that is kind of the hard thing with Polly and Ben is that the War Machines is the only true complete story, and that's the first Doctor story that they are in. The 10th planet, most of it's there, except for the fourth episode, and at least it's partially there. And after that, everything else is lost to time in her time in the TARDIS. So,
Yeah. A few of them have
um,
been done with the animation now, but it's still not the same.
and it doesn't give the characters true expression.
Yeah.
It gives them their voice at least, but not necessarily their expression.
Yep. Better than
So,
nothing.
yep. So I think I still give Polly a yay. I could have kept Polly on, and I think they wanted to, in all honesty, but she decided she was done when she was done.
Yeah. And
But it
I'm
definitely,
same. I pick it as a yay. And I mean, I'm always a fan of, at least every once in a while, when the Doctor regenerates, to have the companions stay on for continuity. Um, I know with the third Doctor and with
it
the
happened a
ninth
few
Doctor,
times.
like there are
Yeah.
plenty of times that we have like a soft reboot, but I always appreciate the continuity, like with Clara and Rose and the fourth
Yeah.
Doctor's companions. Like,
Yeah. Um, and I mean, even the third Doctor with Sarah Jane going into the fourth Doctor,
exactly.
I do think that it is nicer. I prefer the companion to stay, just because that continuity, that feel,
Mhm.
yeah, with it. And so Polly being this, what did I just witness concept and having no idea what's going on, and is he really the same person? I mean, they literally watched him regenerate, and it's still a question that they have. So, but
Well,
of
and
course,
we
it's
get
a question
that.
that everybody has because
Yeah,
at that
right.
point, nobody knew about regenerations.
Well, and even more so than Polly, and this segues us to Ben,
That's
because
fine.
Ben was the skeptic in all of that.
Yep.
But just to recap, we both said Ben was okay, positively okay. Like with Polly, he was in from the war machines through the faceless ones, returned to the 1960s. And I referenced this last time, but the two of them were mentioned in the Sarah Jane Adventures as running an orphanage, just as a peek at their future. That's what Sarah Jane had found out that they had done after leaving the TARDIS.
Yep.
So always kind of
That's
fun. But as far as his time in the TARDIS with the second Doctor, he was definitely the skeptic after the regeneration, but he was also the skeptic of time travel with the first Doctor. So
you know.
go figure.
I mean, Ben takes on a role similar to what Ian had
Hmm.
in my mind. Ian was definitely very skeptic for the first Doctor, and Ben has that similar skepticism, um, similar argument, but also where Ian um, was a man who wanted to learn. and to grow in knowledge, Ben didn't want to. He didn't seem to care. He didn't want to grow
Mhm.
as a person, which I can make a short joke, but you and I are both pretty short ourselves, so that doesn't help. Um, Maybe I should be
Nope.
allowed to make a short joke. I don't know.
I don't
Am I
know.
allowed? Anyway, Ben always looked shorter than Polly. Um, and Ben always acted like everybody needed his protection. And like I always saw Ben as like the little dog in a big fight, where he's like,
I
"Hey,
wouldn't
dude,
go quite
you're
that
not."
far, but I hear you.
I mean, he'd always be the one that just did not seem like he was gonna win anything. I mean, he did a lot of good things, and fortunately, again, because they're episodes that you actually see them in, there are only really two stories. He he was small enough where he could crawl through vents and stuff like that, which I thought was, you know, nice use of natural ability at that point for him. But I just think that Ben came across as a little too um, misogynistic.
Yeah.
Not so negative and horrible.
Like I
You
think he
know,
was trying to be chivalrous,
yep,
but I mean, you put in
yeah,
the notes
chivalrous
that
that came off misogynistic.
I
Go
mean, you
ahead.
put in the notes that Polly didn't need his protection near as much as
Yep,
he needed hers and Jamie's.
yep, yep. Paul,
But
Ben just Ben and Polly, especially as their stories go on, if you listen to them, after the second Doctor becomes the second Doctor, the next story is Highlanders, which introduces Jamie, and after that, it seems like Ben becomes the damsel in distress a lot of times. He's the one that gets separated out, um, and then is with the second Doctor, and the other and Polly and Jamie end up together, and it almost made it feel like, well, Polly could stay and Jamie and her would make a great pair.
mhm.
Ben's just in the way, but
Yeah,
it
but
wasn't to be that way.
I mean, I still put Ben as okay.
Yeah,
Probably the low tier of okay.
agreed.
Give him the short
Ben,
end of the stick.
yes.
There's a short joke
Um,
for you.
that was a nice short joke. I appreciate it. Ben just didn't. I I struggled between nay and okay. At one point,
Hmm.
I had him like there was one episode, and I can't remember which one it was, but I felt like he really redeemed himself. But then the next time I heard him speak on I want to say it was the Moon Base or Underwater Menace, and I'm like, okay, well he's not so bad. And then he says something else, but I'm like, never mind. Or he's being really rude to Polly, and I'm done. He's okay
Yeah,
again. So, and I'm okay moving on from Ben.
sounds good. So moving on from Ben to the second Doctor's BFF, Jamie. Um, pretty unique among at least most of the Doctor Who companions that he's from the past. And I mean, we get Victoria later on, who's from the past as well. But
But
it's
not
a
as far in the past as
yeah.
Jamie is.
So it's always interesting coming from that perspective. Although I felt like Jamie had a remarkable grasp of like modern and futuristic technologies despite being from the past. So it was, I mean, if I feel like if we would have had, Victoria and Clara um, in the TARDIS longer, she would have had a lot more questions about, well, what's this do? Like like what's the internet? Like television, like all these things. But Jamie just seemed to take it all in stride and understand it pretty quickly. At the same time, he's an inquisitive guy, so why didn't he ask more questions about stuff he shouldn't have understood? But
And Jamie, like the others, some of the ones before him, and well, I think all honestly, um, every companion before him since Vicky. So we had the first three with the first Doctor, and then Vicky replacing Susan. Everybody after that becomes an accidental companion for a while, and Jamie continues this one because he's trying to escape with them. He had the possibility of going in one direction, but he was with three other people, and he felt safer, and he walks in the
yeah,
TARDIS with them. Um, which just he wasn't so he was very trusting of his gut because you
Mhm.
would see he saw goodness in these people and he felt fine, I'll go with you in your tiny little blue box. But then he went with them for a long time. I
Well,
also
yeah,
Jamie, go ahead.
I would just say, yeah, he entered in the Highlanders and stayed all the way till the end of the second Doctor with the War Games.
So
And
he's literally in all the stories of the Second Doctor except for his first one.
yeah, and I mean, if we count, he was also in the
Two
five
Doctors.
Doctors and the two Doctors, although in the five
Yeah.
Doctors he was just an illusion. But in the
And he's
two
there for literally like two
Doctors,
scenes.
oh, if two scenes.
Yeah, like 20 seconds each.
But with the two Doctors, there's a theory that it's like after War Games, but before his memory's wiped.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that theory.
so
I don't
also,
worry so much about some of those theories. I just enjoy the ride, right?
it's just a fun headcanon, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, like it just the he really was like the second Doctor's longest friend. Like
yep.
even after his tenure, he kept coming back whenever the second Doctor appeared.
Pretty much. And Jamie starts this trend of I'm the Doctor's best friend. Um, you don't really see that again until you get to Sarah Jane, although I'd argue that Joe was kind of the Doctor's best
I was
friend.
gonna say you could count Joe probably.
Except Joe also felt like the
She was still
Doctor's
his
daughter
assistant.
in a way. Yeah, she was his assistant, but she also I felt like he treated her a little bit more like a daughter.
I
Their
could see that.
relationship was very beautiful in that aspect. But a daughter where he's like, I know I'm not gonna mess like basically if the doctor had to take medicine and Joe was his daughter, she would make him take it. Even regardless, if he was with Joe, she'd make him take it, like a good daughter would. And that's how I
But
saw their relationship.
we'll save that discussion for when
We
we
can
get
set
to
that
the
for
third
later.
Doctor's companions.
Sorry, I was going with a best friend concept here. You
Yeah,
brought in Joe. I didn't want to bring in Joe. I was going with the second Doctor. And
yeah,
Jamie, you get the fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane. Um, I think you could argue a little bit of the seventh Doctor and Ace, maybe. Um,
maybe we'll have to
but then
find out when we
then
get there.
you get 10 and Donna, 12 and
Sort of 11 and Amy, but she's got her
sort of,
own
but you do get 12 and Clara, and then 15 and and uh,
Ruby.
Ruby. Thank you. I had like four names in my head, and I'm like, that is not who that girl is. And then I got her
No.
real name in my head, and I'm like, that doesn't work. And he actually states it. The 15th Doctor states that she's his best friend. So, I Jamie as a character grows a lot throughout his time, and he's able to do a whole lot with the Doctor. And I think that was just what made him a really fun character to have in Doctor Who, because again, he doesn't quite fit, but he does fit.
Mm.
He fits with the Doctor. He doesn't necessarily fit with the technology, just the Doctor as his friend. And I'll follow you and I'll hang out with you. I'm having fun. I'll keep going.
Um, I mean,
I mean,
I ranked him as yay,
yep.
and to the point where, you know, when his mind was wiped, it's it's kind of tragic, and you sad to see him go, just like Donna before she got her memories back.
Yep. It is sad and painful to watch. I mean, as much as I do love Zoe as well, it's more painful with Jamie because you've seen Jamie, like I said, Jamie's been with the Second Doctor all but one of the stories during his main tenure as the Second Doctor, as the Doctor, and so it is very sad to see him lose his best friend in that aspect.
Agreed.
So definitely a yay for Jamie as well.
All right. Well, let's move on to the worst companion since Dodo, and that's going to be my only reference to her this episode, I promise. We are going to talk about Victoria next.
I still prefer Dodo, so that'll be my own reference.
Yeah, well, at least Victoria had a proper departure.
I
So,
don't disagree with that. Victoria has a better meeting and departure. But that's about all she's got going for her.
yep. She
I'm sorry
stayed.
to poor Victoria.
She was picked up by the doctor after her family was massacred, if I recall, in
Her father.
oh, her father
I think it's just
in
her father at that point.
okay, that was in the Evil of the Daleks, and then she
Yep.
stayed with the second Doctor through Fury of the Deep,
Yep.
where I can't remember who it was that took her in, but she was taken in by a family.
I want to say the Harrises are who she stays with.
Now,
Um,
were they in her same time period where she came from? Because she was from the past as
I
well.
she so if I remember correctly, Victoria's from 19th century England, but the Harrises are somewhere in 20th century because we're talking pipelines and oil rigs. You're not getting that in the 19th century. Um, so I don't think that she went back to her time. I think she went to closer to modern day.
Okay, modern day of the time.
Modern day, their modern day.
Yeah.
Now 50 years ago almost. So
So I just looked this up.
over
She's
50.
from 1866. Her father had been experimenting with time travel, which is
Yep.
what brought the Daleks to him. And she stayed in the 20th century with the Harrises. Yeah.
I thought it was 20th century, yeah. With the Harrises because they were kind and she was done and I was done with
Yep.
Victoria. She complained a lot, which, almost as much as you complain about Dodo. That's her. Um,
Almost.
almost. Ian and Barbara complained about being with the first Doctor. He basically kidnapped them. Victoria, in a kind of a similar way, the Doctor rescued her more than kidnap her, but she didn't get much of a choice of either go with the Doctor or pretty much die right where
Yeah.
she
Be
was.
abandoned
And in the
in the
19th century,
yeah.
Victorian England, I think it was Victorian. Either way, she just never stopped complaining about being trapped with the Doctor.
Well, and not just complaining, she never stopped screaming.
That too.
Screaming,
Um,
screaming, screaming, possibly more than Susan and Vicky combined.
yep. Vicky didn't bother me as much with the screaming, but Victoria, which I also found odd because they gave her a similar name of a companion who'd already been there,
Yeah.
but
Well,
not impossible. Either way, so Victoria uh, screamed a lot and a lot and a lot. Um,
I'll amend my statement. She screamed more than Susan and Barbara combined.
I'll not disagree with that because I didn't think. I mean, Vicky screamed, but not nearly
But Vicky also had a clever, intelligent kind of
side to her.
air
Yeah.
to her as well.
Yep.
But Victoria
And
was the definition of damsel in distress.
I mean, she was damsel in distress despite already being rescued. It felt like. Um,
Damsel in distress every episode she was in, I feel like.
yeah, I want to say as much as I do not love the story, even though it's so many people's favorite of the Second Doctor, the Tomb of the Cybermen. I want to say that she had some decent redeeming scenes in there, but again, it's been so long. I've already gone through most of the Third Doctor.
I want to say you're right though, that I feel like that was probably one of my more preferred episodes with her, but that might also have to do with the fact that at least some of the second Doctor is still missing, and I can't remember if any of hers are missing, but that
I think
also
some
is
of
somewhat
hers.
how forgettable she is.
I mean, her first story is missing most of it, all but one of the episodes.
Hmm.
Um, the Tomb of the Cybermen is still there, and then the next two are both partially missing or mostly missing. Um, and then you got the Enemy of the World, which was found in 2013. The Web of Fear, which was mostly found in 2013, and then somebody stole one of the episodes. So episode three is in animation. And then Fury from the Deep, her final story is completely missing.
Okay, so there is a good chunk of her missing,
Yep.
but yeah.
But she does have
So
one,
her
two,
best episode is
three,
still
four.
around.
Yeah, I had an opinion there. And I don't think she was too bad in Enemy of the World either. I really like Enemy of the World as one of my more favorite Second Doctor stories, despite
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot
Main
more the second time
companion.
around, but because the first time around I felt like it was pretty forgettable, but when watched it during this run through, I enjoyed it. Um, we already discussed our favorite episodes last time we recorded, so we won't go back into that.
No, I'm more just trying to figure out redeeming qualities, but the problem is she just is in some okay, decent episodes. And other than that, just
Yeah.
if you haven't guessed by now, Victoria is on the name list. I was done. I
Yeah.
just was done.
Well, and I put her on the nay, and just like you said, so much screaming, and I think I didn't dislike her as much as you did, but at the same time it's like there's a lot of screaming and not a lot of redeeming qualities.
Yep. And just somebody who, I mean, look, talking to so many Doctor Who fans, how many would love to have the mysterious blue box show up and enter in and go off, as long as the person's on the other side of the door, someone you want it to be. Shoot, I'd even go with the Sixth Doctor. That's fine. But either way, she was not one of them at all.
Definitely
So,
not. And she never really adjusted to the
no.
TARDIS, like even Ian and Barbara adjusted to whatever extent.
Yeah. Which is kind of sad because then she ends up almost like 100 years in the future from where she left. So,
Yeah.
um, she has kind of a sadder story overall, but again, it fit in the way that that went.
Yeah.
But I don't mind moving on from Victoria because she was definitely not
Yeah.
my favorite.
We can move on from her to our last companion, Zoe. Um, Came into the TARDIS in the Wheel in Space and stayed on through the war games where she was mind wiped and returned home just like Jamie. She appeared as an illusion in the Five Doctors like Jamie did, but she was not in the Two Doctors with Jamie in the second Doctor. I don't believe that we ever saw the real Zoe again after she was returned to her
Um,
time period.
Technically, we see Zoe in um oh shoot, I had it in my head. What are the recent openings to the classic episodes that BBC put out, where they have that secondary TARDIS. Um, they have the memory TARDIS where I don't know if you've seen any of them because look on your face that nobody else can see makes me question that. Basically, they've done these. The BBC has done a few segments where they have a small scene with previous companions entering the memory TARDIS and getting memories of of their time with the Doctor and starting. Basically, it's the opening to a story, whatever
Okay.
story has already been. I don't remember which one it was for Jamie and Zoe, but that is something that the two of them were in. Um, called Tales of the TARDIS. That is what it is.
Okay, I have heard of Tales of the TARDIS.
Yeah, and so it's just a um, yeah, it's just a small little thing where they do an introduction basically
Ooh,
going into, and I think theirs was Mind Robber with
that
Joe.
was a good story.
So that's my favorite. Um, but yeah, that's what it was. So she has been so Wendy Padbury has played Zoe a little more recently in the last year or so, uh,
Yeah.
in live action in some fashion. So either
Cool.
way, Zoe is by far one of my favorite companions. Zoe and Jamie, along with the Second Doctor, that was my favorite Second Doctor team by all means.
Well, I think just the fact that she could match wits with the Doctor. I
Yep,
mean, I know it didn't really make your list, but it almost made my list. The Crotons, or the Croutons, as I like to call
croutons.
them. Um, get a Caesar salad going on here, but that's unimportant. Um,
But in the
but it,
crotons,
yeah, the doctor's all trying to, he's getting through the puzzle intelligence test, whatever it was, and and then Zoe's like, I have this image from Legally Blonde when she gets into law school and sees her ex-boyfriend.
Right.
She's like, "What? Like it's hard?"
Yeah. Like
So
that is Zoe's character definitely in that mindset where Zoe is just like a 20-year-old person from the future. So Zoe's from, what is she from? 23rd, 24th century? I don't remember now.
no, the 21st century.
21st century. So it was 21st. I wanted to say 21st at first, but I thought it was
I
further.
want to
Either
say
way,
it's the not too distant future for us nowadays.
yeah. Either way, Zoe was like a prodigy.
Yeah, even in her time.
Even in her time, she had just this great intelligence. Um, yeah, 21st century is when Zoe's supposed to be from. So, um, she just had this. She almost like almost as if she was a splinter of Clara. I would hope that nobody ever retconned her into being a splinter of Clara because that would
No,
bug me
definitely
to
not.
no end. Because Zoe was her own person,
Oh,
very much
definitely.
so, and had her own. I mean, Zoe also was. Jamie was able to get in a good fight and get a good punch in with his Highlander training, but Zoe was able to fight anything that came her way, despite
Yeah.
being, small and short. She's fine.
In her
So,
silver
her silver
jumpsuit.
spacesuit suit. Yep.
So
Oh yeah.
2079 was the year she was from.
Okay.
So
So
still
she's,
50 years away from us, but
but that means also only 30 years before she's born.
yeah. So happy
So
early birthday, Zoe.
there you go. Whatever year it is, and whatever
Whatever
year the
year,
Doctor
yeah.
is. But I mean, her introduction again. I don't think if I remember right, she purposely goes into the TARDIS, not necessarily to travel with the Doctor and Jamie, but she does purposely go in there to speak to
Doesn't
them,
uh
to
doesn't the
visit them.
doctor like show her like images of what they've encountered and kind of gives her the like a if you're gonna go with us, then you need to be prepared.
He does try to scare her. I do remember that. And she's like, I don't care, just take me with you. I'm more interested in what you've got going on here. This is much more interesting than where I'm at. But when her mind is wiped, she's pretty much put back exactly where she came from and when. So, which is what the Time Lord said they would do anyway. Um,
So it's tragic, but I mean, I still feel like Jamie was more tragic and Donna was more tragicer.
yeah, Donna becomes most tragic in that comparison between the three who get their mind wiped before leaving the TARDIS. Zoe is the least tragic, but part of it is that Zoe is younger and
Well, and she had a
she
good
was
life in her
she had
own
a
time
good life
period.
ahead of her. Yeah, she wasn't in a bad position
So
where she would go back. She didn't
whereas
go back
like
into the
Donna like lost all of her self-confidence when her
yep.
memory was wiped. So that was the
She
nice thing
returned
about
back.
having it back.
Yes. Um, and you get a lot of good. I think I think with Zoe, she's got a lot of decent stories. Unfortunately, Will in Space is not something that we can watch all of. Dominators is not a great story period in my mind. But then Mind Robber, Invasion, Protons, those are all really good. War Games was really good. And despite being really long, it was still really good. Seeds of Death was okay, and Space Pirates, I'm okay that's not been. It might be
Yeah.
finally animated, but
Hey, but every companion has episodes that aren't that great. I mean,
yep.
just look at Love and Monsters.
And let's not talk about that one. But Zoe, as a character, you still have, even in the negative or in the not so great episodes, Zoe is such a great character in general.
Well, and
Um,
like Polly, she's the
yep,
feminine presence in the TARDIS, but she's not a damsel in distress. Even when she's captured or she's in distress, she's, still holding her own and finding a way out. She's not just screaming constantly like Victoria.
exactly. She accepts this is where I'm at. Now let me get back to where I want to be. And I think that's so true for her as a character overall. Um, she was just she was very intelligent, and they wrote her very well, with
Hmm.
intelligence and with strength. You see her pulling out ninja moves, which I think that they kind of wrote and retcon, not retcon, just wrote and added to the Third Doctor's character because it worked so well, I think, for Zoe.
Yeah,
Um,
all in
her
her
defending
shiny
herself
silver spacesuit.
in her shiny spacesuit.
I guess I don't know if it was
Um,
silver because it was black and white back then,
it's
but it
silver.
was shiny.
It definitely. I don't think it was anything but silver.
But
I mean,
who's to say?
it's a common concept back then that in the future everybody was wearing silver.
Silver space suits.
In the past, everyone wears gold. In the future, everyone wears shiny silver.
Apparently
So,
so.
so,
But
but that is Zoe. And if you can't tell, Zoe's also on my yay list.
yeah, I think the second Doctor's companions across the board, we were pretty unanimous of we didn't disagree on any of them. That
Not this one, no.
we got three good yays, a nay, and an okay. So
And I mean, I do think those three yays, they shine. The second Doctor is one of my more favorite Doctors, and I think part of that does have to do with his relationship with his companions, the companions themselves.
mhm.
Um, they stand out a little bit, and in a way, second Doctor starts off with companions from the first Doctor, then he gets his own companions, and then, like you were saying earlier, second Doctor's companions end with him. They don't move on with the third Doctor. So,
Yep. The
um,
first of Doctor Who's many soft reboots,
yes,
which makes it easier
very
for
good.
fans to jump in, I suppose.
How many soft reboots do they really do? I mean, I guess when you count 8 and 9, and then
Yeah,
11
third Doctor, eighth Doctor,
and
ninth
13.
Doctor, 11th Doctor, 13th Doctor, kind of the 15th, but even though
Yeah,
he
15 as
appeared
well.
with the in the specials.
And 14, 13, 14, and 15 technically all. Well, 13, 14. 15 technically holds on with Mel, um, in that episode a little bit, even though she's not exactly a companion.
Yeah.
But Mel, we can get back to Mel later when we talk about 6 and 7.
Oh, that'll be a fun
Um,
one.
yep. But yeah, I mean, with Jamie and Zoe here, and as well as Polly, I definitely can't discount Polly. I think he had three really good companions, people who knew how to challenge the Doctor properly, but also be on his side consistently.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have one that's a little weaker and one that just, in a way, I don't blame her, and in a way, I wish they could have just made her scream less.
Yep.
But
Agreed. But when we get to the third Doctor, it's going to be. I'm excited because I think all those are going to be yay for me. But we still have the second Doctor's villains and the second Doctor himself to discuss before we get to that point.
excuse me, yes.
So
Um, yeah, I mean, we get some good villains to talk about with the second Doctor because some of them are, especially one that is, um, consistent for the second Doctor. And then overall, I think the second Doctor, because of all the missing stories, him and his companions just do not get the credit that they deserve.
I can agree with that.
So,
Anything
but
else you want to say before you sign us off?
nope, I think I am good. Appreciate everyone listening to us.
Okay, say the
And
thing.
say the thing,
Yeah,
saying the
say the
thing.
thing.
Alien abductions are mandatory. Oh my gosh, no, they're not. Yes. Alien abductions are involuntary. Let me start over. My brain, it's been too long. Let me
Okay, I'll
start.
cut that out.
Thank you. Okay, so you want me to say the thing?
Say the
Alien
thing.
abductions are, yes, I'll say the thing. Alien abductions are involuntary, but probings are scheduled. Okay.